Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Professor Dr. Fakhr-ul-Islam, Director, Pakistan Study Center, University of Peshawar. Ladies and gentlemen, in this slide of presentation, I am going to give you a background of the 1956 Constitution. Let me clarify at the very outset that unfortunately, this chapter of our constitutional and political history is not a good one. It is full of calamities, leg pulling, political instability, and things like that. Unfortunately, soon after the achievement of Pakistan, its leader, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, died in September 1948. Pakistan was busy in tackling the situation after independence, and there were so many problems initially faced by the newborn state. Qaid-e-Azam was a capable leader, but unfortunately he was seriously ill, so he couldn't survive, and it is always an unlucky situation when a newly born state loses its leader, but that was from God Almighty, and we had to replace him by Khwaja Nazimuddin as the second Governor General of Pakistan. Besides all problems faced by Pakistan at the initial stage, we were supposed to frame a constitution for the newly born state. The affairs of the state were then run by a constitutional document called as the Provisional Constitution of 1947. That constitution was actually an amended form of the Government of India Act 1935. Under the Provisional Constitution, the first Constituent Assembly was provided. The first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan was supposed to perform two functions. First one was to frame laws for the newly born state, and second was to frame a constitution. This assembly had a strength of 79 members, but unfortunately it could not succeed in framing some good laws or framing the constitution. But one thing which can be given, for which credit can be given to this assembly, was it did pass a very important resolution which was called as the Objectives Dissolution on 12th March 1949. That resolution actually laid the foundation of constitution making in Pakistan. If we study that resolution, so it is comprised of some main points. The first and foremost point was that sovereignty over the entire universe was attributed to Allah Almighty. Second, it was decided that the affairs of the state in Pakistan will be run through chosen and elected representatives. Third, a federal form of government was proposed for Pakistan. Fourth, there was a clear-cut declaration that Pakistani state will protect the rights of the citizen and particularly of minorities. Fifth, the concept of independent judiciary was also given in the Objectives Resolution. Sixth, there was a clear-cut mention of Pakistan's relation with the states of the world and especially the Muslim states. point was also included in the Objectives Resolution that the citizens of Pakistan will be given an opportunity to lead their individual and collective lives in accordance with the uh, principles of Islam. So, actually, this resolution provided a very solid base for the framers of the future constitution. On the same day, when this resolution was passed, a committee was constituted by the Assembly, which was called as the Basic Principles Committee. As the name is self-explanatory, the committee was supposed to draft different parts of the Constitution. The Basic Principle Committee, or BPC, constituted some subcommittees for different parts of the Constitution. For instance, for legislature, there was a separate committee. For franchise matters, there was another committee. For the structure of the federation, there was another committee. So the work was divided among the subcommittees. The BPC was able to present its first report in September 1950 to the Assembly, but unfortunately, that report triggered controversy. The objection came from the Bengalis first. Bengali wanted 50% share in the resources and in the government. Although Bengal, or East Pakistan, was a fifth province of Pakistan, but it had a larger population, which was larger even than the cumulative population of the West Pakistan. So they raised objections and they rejected the first interim report of the BPC. Another objection came from the ulama, and they wanted to incorporate some more provisions regarding Islam in the future constitution. So, due to these two reasons, the first report was deferred, and when that was deferred, then the BPC was supposed to bring about another report, but in the meantime, some development took place. The first and foremost and the tragic one was the death of Liaquat Ali Khan. It was not a natural death, unfortunately. He was addressing a public meeting in the company Bagh of Rawalpindi city, which is nowadays called as Liaquat Bagh. It was 16 October 1951 when he was shot dead by a person named Said Akbar, who was presumably from Afghanistan. Said Akbar was crushed to death by the supporters of Muslim League on the spot, and unfortunately, nothing was known about the death of Liaquat Ali Khan. But this death, on one way, destabilized Pakistan, and on the other hand, it unfortunately stopped or hindered the constitution making process in Pakistan. Liaquat Ali Khan was replaced by Khwaja Nazimuddin. Khwaja tried to restart the halted process of constitution making, and he came up with a formula which he tried to convince the Bengalis and the ulama, but that formula also could not muster support of these two main groups, and in the meantime his government was toppled in 1953. After him, Muhammad Ali Bogra was brought in as Prime Minister of Pakistan. He was actually the ambassador of Pakistan to the United States. He came and he restarted the halted process of constitution making, and finally he was able to bring about a formula which was acceptable to Bengalis as well as ulamas, and besides them, the people of West Pakistan also accepted that formula wholeheartedly. And finally, the report was adopted by the Assembly. The adoption of the Basic Principle Committee report meant that then the constitution making process was not a problem. So Muhammad Ali Bogra even hired the services of some British law drafters so that they could draft the constitution for Pakistan. Um, he was busy in that project of drafting the constitution when another problem started, and that was uh, the resolution of the assembly, or a bill passed by the assembly, which wanted to curtail the um powers of the governor general. So the governor general responded harshly, and he uh, dissolved the National Assembly, and in this way, the assembly which was supposed to frame the constitution of Pakistan was no more. The Speaker or the President of the First Constituent Assembly, Maulvi Tamizuddin Khan, started a legal battle with the Governor General Ghulam Muhammad, who had issued the proclamation of dissolution. The case came to the Sindh Provincial Court, which was in those days called as Sindh Chief Court, and the court decided against the dissolution, and the assembly was restored. But then the federal government went for an appeal to the federal court, which is nowadays called as the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reversed the decision of the Sindh Chief Court, meaning that the assembly was dissolved once for all. And at the same time, the court directed the Governor General to uh, elect another assembly for constitution making. So the second Constituent Assembly was elected in 1955, but that assembly was different from the first one. I mean, in the first Constituent Assembly, Muslim League had 60 members out of 79, but in the second Constituent Assembly, Muslim League had only 25 members out of 80. So Muslim League received a crushing defeat, and it was in no position to form a government. So then it had to enter into an alliance which was called as United Democratic Front. It was from the East Pakistan. So when a party from the East Pakistan and a party from the West Pakistan decided to form a government in the center, it means that constitution making process became easier. These two parties, first of all, resolved the issue of distribution of power and resources between the two wings of the country. So an act was passed by the assembly, which was called as the which is formally and commonly known as the One Unit Act, but it was basically the establishment of West Pakistan Act 1955. As a result of that act, the six western provinces were amalgamated into a single province called as West Pakistan. So the issue of distribution of resources was amicably resolved, and a parity principle prevailed between the two. I mean, then the distribution of power and share in the government was decided on 50-50 basis. So when all these hurdles were removed, then the constitution making process, which was not possible to be completed in 9 years, was completed in few weeks. And in February 1956, the assembly, the second Constituent Assembly, adopted the full-fledged constitution for Pakistan, which was enforced on 23rd March 1956 as the first constitution of Pakistan, it should be noted that the day on which a constitution is promulgated in a country is called as the commencing day.